Hello, today my guest on CivilNet is Aramas Kalajian, who produces a movie, Tezeta, the Ethiopian Armenians, on the history of Armenian presence in Ethiopia. Hello, Aramas. What brought you first to Ethiopia? How you appeared there, and what thoughts were in your head when you first stepped on Ethiopian soil?
Well, thank you for having me. I was brought to Ethiopia actually by my wife. She received a grant to work at an AIDS clinic in Ethiopia before doing her Fulbright scholarship here in Armenia, and we decided to take the leap together and establish ourselves here in Armenia by first going to Ethiopia together and then coming here. And I decided to do research while I was there about our film.
But you heard first about the Ethiopian Armenian community way back before when you were living still in the United States, right?
Yes, that's true. While I was my wife and I were living, Ani and I were living in Harlem at the time. We had lived there for 3 years, and there's a library that's very close to us called the Schoenberg Library of African American Studies. And while I was there, I walked in one day and asked the librarian, like any Armenian would, to tell me about what connection there is with Armenians and Africa. And sure enough, the lady that I asked didn't know, but there was a woman there that was half Armenian who brought to me 2 books that described the connection that Armenians have had with Ethiopia for a very long time, since we became Christian nations, actually. And
what were some of the highlights you studied from the book that surprised you, maybe?
So many. One of the things is that Armenians are considered the first Christian nation. Ethiopia was the second Christian nation. From that early time to, in 1924, Prince Rastafari, who then became Emperor Haile Selassie, took a trip to Jerusalem on his way to represent Ethiopia in the League of Nations, and in Jerusalem saw 40 Armenian orphans from the Armenian genocide who were organized into a brass orchestra and played music for him. And he was so inspired that he adopted these 40 orphans along with giving a job to the band leader Kevork Nalbandian, and brought them to Ethiopia and gave them a place in his palace. And then eventually they became the first imperial band of Ethiopia, with Kevork Nalbandian, their band leader, creating the music for the first national anthem, which is a really a huge achievement at such an early stage of Armenian history. At such a stage of Armenian history, we didn't have a nation at that time. To have that connection with the royalty is really big.
What can you tell us about the similarities between Armenian and Ethiopian churches, script? I know the script looks pretty much very similar to each other. We are the 2 countries that have apostolic churches. How come did this happen? Any ideas?
A man, Sarkis Terzian, there's a man named Sarkis Terzian who brought the first automobile to Ethiopia. He also helped to bring guns to help fight Italians who were attacking Ethiopia. There's a man, Bolos Markarian, who served as advisor to Emperor Menelik II. That was in the late 1800s. There are a family of photographers that served both Emperor Menelik and Emperor Haile Selassie in 2 royal families. There are numerous jewelers, carpet makers, goldsmiths, silversmiths. Armenians were merchants and businessmen there. The first printing presses were brought there by the Jehrayan brothers, who had great success in creating a lot of the printed materials that were made by machines in early Ethiopian printing history.
What is the storyline of the movie you are producing? Is it telling the history of the community? Is it telling the history of the present day community? Who have you talked with? Where is it going?
The main story is that Armenians and Ethiopians have shared a long history together. And most unique is that musical connection. And our intention is to bring this really rich, layered history to the international audience, with music serving as the main focus, because as we know, music is a universal language, and it can speak to the hearts of many. And in order to bring that out, I've interviewed 35 members of the Armenian community there. I've interviewed 10 really legendary musicians, Ethiopian musicians, Mulatu Astatke, Alamayo Eshete, which are really big name musicians in Ethiopians, what is called the golden era of music. So these musicians have a really strong tie to a man named Nerses Nalbandian, and this connection, this musical connection with Ethiopian Armenians, this is what I feel will help bring this story out. Both Armenians and Ethiopians aren't really aware of how much of an influence Armenians and Ethiopians have had with each other in Ethiopia. And this is partly due to the communist Derg regime. They had a policy of rewriting imperial history. And so a lot of this story hasn't been told. A lot of this isn't even known to the broader Armenian community, broader Ethiopian community, and naturally when those communities aren't aware of their own history, the international...
They don't share it, they don't talk about it, it just stays. How did you come to meet all these Armenians you interviewed? Thinking that the community is pretty small, around 100 people. How did you meet all these Armenians? Did you just meet one and then they connected with 10 other Armenians? How did it happen?
It actually started with my father had a classmate at Melkonian Institute in Cyprus who was from Ethiopia. Her name is Salpi Nalbandian. And before my wife and I were traveling to Ethiopia, he connected us with her. And they helped us find a place to stay. And so through this connection, they hadn't spoken in probably 40 years. Through this connection, we were able to be introduced to the church where you can find Armenians that go there, and introduced to other Armenians there. And there aren't that many, and so you can kind of get to know everyone every once in a while, even though it sometimes is difficult to arrange a meeting. They're often quite busy. They're family people, they're business people, they're community people. As
far as I understand, the movie is kind of a co-production between Ethiopian team and Armenian team. Ethiopia, you had locals working on shooting and on assisting you probably, and here will be done the editing and the post-production, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Our producer is American-born. Her name is Marie Claire Andrea, and our cinematographer is Tamanat Mekonnen. He is born in Ethiopia. They're both living and working there currently. They are our core group in Ethiopia. And here in Armenia, we will be doing post-production here. So our production, our cameraman, our camera work, footwork, footage, getting archival footage, permits, locations, transport, all that will be done in Ethiopia. And then here in Armenia, we plan to finish the film, master, do sound editing, and prepare the film for the film festival circuit.
And you don't have a film background, right? Your education is somewhere else.
Yes, my background is in communication design. It helped to set the foundation for how I can employ and use photographic techniques, filming techniques, to weave a story and have the story told in a way that can bring as much attention to it as possible. And that's how I came to focus on the music. I really wanted to communicate this story to an international audience, and having this universal theme as the core center, I feel like we can reach that goal.
You are fundraising now for the film on Indiegogo.
Yes.
Where is that going? What do you need money for? What are your goals for going on Indiegogo to raise some money?
Yes, crowdfunding is an amazing tool. We're currently raising $37,000, which will go towards going to Ethiopia, renting equipment, getting permits to film in Ethiopia, getting archival footage and the rights to that archival footage in Ethiopia, as well as the bulk of the work will be translation, because much of the Ethiopian interviews that we've done are in Amharic. And in order to have that accessible to the broader public, we need to have a translation and transcription in order for us to edit. So much of that, those funds will go to the production in Ethiopia, as well as help us start doing post-production here in Yerevan, to do sound editing and to edit the actual film, to have a professional studio to edit with, and to complete the film and master the film in a way that we can start to present it to the broader public.
When we were talking before, you mentioned that you are thinking in a wider sense. You are not only thinking about doing this movie, but going forward with this Ethiopian Armenian connection and bringing some Ethiopian musicians, singers to have their shows in Armenia. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The amount of wealth that we have culturally in the connections that we have around the world, from South America, North America, Europe, Africa, to Asia, Singapore, India, China. We have such a wide global society that we can tap into and reconnect with the country Armenia. And I've had these feelings in me, and while I was in Ethiopia, there was one of the most famous Ethiopian jazz musicians, Mulatu Estatke. After our interview, I played him some Armenian music, and he was so inspired by the music, he actually expressed interest in coming here to Armenia to do a concert in collaboration with a jazz musician here. So there are many cultural events that I think are possible in bringing Ethiopian Armenian cultural achievements here, from concerts, jazz concerts, pop concerts, to art exhibits, modern, with a living artist, Kohar Kevorkian, and then an artist that is posthumously famous. His name is Iskender Bogossian, who's half Ethiopian, half Armenian, who has a really big name in African modern art. Yeah, and bringing that here, and bringing even the illuminated manuscripts of Ethiopian illuminated manuscripts here, and have an exhibit of Ethiopian illuminated manuscripts and Armenian illuminated manuscripts, to kind of bring this cultural romance to life and have it represented here in Armenia. If this film is successful, it can help bring these cultural events to Armenia, and then that can then be replicated and invite other cultures to have their achievements and their successes represented here, or displayed here, or exhibited here. The more interest that we show in our broad diaspora that we've reached, the more we can feel no longer as just Armenia as the 3 million that are in the nation, but the 10 million around the world. And the idea is to reconnect that and to spur that interest. And our film aims to do that. And right now, if we're fundraising, if people can take a look at our website, it's www.indiegogo.com/Tezeta. And it would be, I would be honored for anyone who would want to give. I'd be very, very thankful. We'd be very thankful.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the good luck with fundraising for this movie and all the production and post-production that you will be doing over the next couple of years, I think. I was talking with Aramas Kalajian, who is producing a movie on Ethiopian Armenians, Tezeta. Keep following CivilNet.